I opened a cursed Ouija board, and awakened a terrifying force beyond my control. I never should have opened that door. The moment my fingers grazed the cold, engraved surface of the Ouija board, a shiver raced down my spine. It felt wrong. It felt alive. I was just bored, stuck in my tiny apartment with nothing but the relentless tick of the clock and the haunting whispers of the past echoing in my mind. I thought it would be fun. A little thrill to liven up my dull evening. But as I opened that door, I stepped into a nightmare. The room was dim, shadows dancing across the walls as I pulled the board from its dusty confines. The air felt thick, almost viscous, cold as it wrapped around me like a clammy embrace. I sat at the table, its surface scarred, remnants of forgotten conversations etched into the wood. The lamp flickered, casting eerie shapes, and each sound seemed amplified the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of my breath that I attempted to shake off the growing dread. Just a game, I whispered to myself. But shadows lurked in the corners, their forms shifting and swirling. The room felt too small, the walls closing in. With each passing second, the atmosphere grew heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't quite comprehend. That I placed my fingers on the planchette, it would cool against my skin. The first question slipped from my lips, shaky and uncertain. Is anyone there? A silence so profound it roared in my ears. Was the board just a piece of vintage decor? Or was something waiting, biding its time? Suddenly, I heard Ida's soft whisper, barely audible, but unmistakably there. Help me, the chill spread through me like ice, tightening my chest. Was I dreaming? No, this was all too real. A creeping sensation crawled up my spine, an instinctual fear that told me to run. I glanced around the room, expecting a face to emerge from the shadows, something menacing, something that was just waiting. A bump sounded in the corner. My heart raced. I swiveled to look. Nothing was there. Just the darkness, swallowing whatever light I had. I tried to convince myself it was just the building settling, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, echoing off the walls. Find me, then. In that moment of gripping dread, the planchette jerked beneath my fingers, moving with a life of its own. Goodbye, it spelled out slowly. I gasped, stepping back, my chair scraping violently against the floor. Panic flooded my senses, the door behind me felt like a prison. I didn't know if I wanted to go forward or run screaming. The lights flickered again, casting me into darkness. My breath quickened. The air crackled with a tension that sent my heart racing. And then, I saw Ida's figure. Tall and shadowy, lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. A breath caught in my throat, the room spun wildly. I felt myself freeze, the scream caught just beneath the surface. Would it burst forth? Or would I be swallowed by that figure? I was trapped, suspended in fear, my world collapsing around me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The shadows warped, their inky tendrils stretching into grotesque shapes, filling the room with their sinister presence. The air crackled with unease, a low hum that felt like the very heartbeat of the board, pulsating beneath my fingertips. I was too terrified to move, my feet felt glued to the floor as I stared into the corner where the figure lurked, shrouded in darkness. It seemed to breathe, heavy and labored, each rise and fall of its form echoing a dreadful promise of despair. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of desperate murmurs, and they knew my name. Help me, help me, help me, over and over, each repetition drummed into my skull like a warning bell. Panic seized me, gnawing at my sanity. I reached frantically for the light switch, my fingers trembling as they hovered just above it. Don't turn it off, a voice threaded through the whispers, sharp and clear, almost a plea. I froze, arrested by the horror that accompanied the whisper. Was it from the figure or another presence lurking within the dark? The planchette shifted once more, an unforgiving jolt that sent a shiver down my spine. "Hope," it spelled, but the hope echoed hollowly against the chaos. I shot a look at the figure. It twitched, and a cold sweat broke out across my brow. I wasn't only staring into darkness, I was staring into something ancient, something that resided in the depths, a remnant of long-lost souls begging for release. "Leave now," the whisper wound through the room like a slithering serpent. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but fear anchored me in place, my heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the oppressive whispers weaving around me. I started to reach for the door, but the moment I began my move, the shadows surged. The figure coalesced into something more defined, a twisted visage of anguish and rage, eyes glowing like hollow voids, fixed upon me with an insatiable hunger. A sickening gravity pulled me closer, rooting me before it. What happened next was surreal. The air became thick, charged with a power unseen, and I could feel the board pulsing again, an ominous heartbeat drumming through my hands. "The circle binds," the shadow hissed, extending a hand that shimmered with darkness. "And you have summoned me." It lunged forward, time distorting as I stumbled back, the planchette slipping away and skidding across the table. A terrible wail tore itself from my throat as I stumbled into the wall, slumping to the floor, desperately tracing my fingers over the cracks in the plaster as if I could burrow my way through the solid wood to escape. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the whispers that now seemed to morph into a single desperate cry for release, a chant that called forth the very nature of despair. A realization struck as the shadows pressed in. The entity didn't just want to scare me, it was starving, craving something I didn't understand. I had opened a portal, but the beyond was not merely extending an invitation, it was demanding something. In a wild, instinctual surge, I grabbed the planchette, the wood retaining the warmth of my palm as I held it like a talisman against the encroaching dark. "What do you want?" I gasped, and the once chaotic whispers coalesced into a single sound, a thunderous roar that suffocated all rational thought. "Your soul," it howled, and in that moment, the lights flickered out, plunging me into impenetrable darkness. My breath hitched, panic overwhelming me. Shadows engulfed me, devouring every shred of light and sanity. The suffocating voice grew louder, tearing at my mind like a predator. I could sense the presence drawing closer, its icy breath pressing against my neck. Then, a new sound disrupted the chaos, a soft, rhythmic knocking reverberating through the darkness, so close that it sent chills through my bones. It was a familiar sound, but one I feared to recognize. In the depths of my terror, I couldn't help but turn towards it. Instinct took over, guiding my trembling fingers toward the swirling void. What was waiting at the heart of the darkness? "Help me," the voice echoed once more. And with it came the weight of an ancient horror, dragging me down, down, down. But what pierced through the thick veil of terror was a truth that sent ice through my veins. What I had awakened was only the beginning. And in the depth of the darkness, I felt something soft and warm, pushing back against the shadows, and I gasped as I opened my mouth to scream into the darkness. A figure emerged, not the shadow I had feared, but a child's silhouette, framed by the void, reaching out with tiny, trembling fingers. "Don't let them take me." And then, nothing. The darkness swallowed all sound, all light, leaving me hanging in the void, heart racing wildly, and I realized, beneath my fear, that I had become the vessel for a much larger horror. It felt as though the very fabric of reality had been torn asunder, the millions of screams from the void merging with the cries of that innocent child like a chilling symphony of despair. I remained suspended in darkness, paralyzed by a sinister force that throttled any chance of rational thought. My heart surged in my chest, pounding against my ribcage as if it sought to escape the monstrous entity looming just out of reach. "Please." The child's voice trembled softly, unnaturally out of place within the cacophony. My mind fractured, desperate for clarity. Every instinct urged me to close my eyes, to drown out the guilt and horror threatening to consume me completely. But the child's urgency tore through my paralysis like a jagged blade. "Don't let them who?" I stammered, my voice cracking like the very air around me. I reached out blindly, searching for something tangible, something warm, but my hand met only cold nothingness. The whispers began to swell again, but this time they intertwined with the child's plea, an agonizing chorus that clawed at my sanity, pressing heavy upon my chest. "Help me!" It cried again, echoing, merging with the shadows that slithered and coiled around me like serpents. The air was suffocating, thick with despair and memories I could not place. I thought I felt a hand brush against my own, a fleeting touch, soft and fragile, followed by a wave of icy dread that coursed through my veins like poison. "Why did you summon them?" The child's voice came again, more solemn this time, a sorrowful chorus amidst the malevolent whispers. It was no longer a mere question, it felt like an accusation, each word laced with fear and desperation that rang in my ears. With every breath, dread pooled within me, threatening to drown me beneath its weight. The air grew colder as I felt an unseen presence inch closer, wrapping its tendrils of shadow around my ankles like shackles. "What have I done?" I whispered, my throat dry, each word a struggle as I fought to comprehend the unfolding horror. Did my recklessness doom us both to a fate worse than death? "There is no escape," the suffocating whispers hissed, merging once more into a singular entity, a being of darkness that enveloped us both. My pulse quickened, thundering against the echoes of longing and despair woven into the shadows. "You are bound and the child is yours to save." The planchette against my palm began to vibrate, a powerful tremor that sent jolts of energy through my fingers. My touch felt electrifying, and as I looked down, I could see the faint glow of a symbol etched on its surface. It pulsed in time with my racing heart, illuminating the void momentarily, granting me a glimpse of horror that retreated into the shadows. Before me lay a reflection not just of my own fear, but a myriad of faces beyond the darkness, faces twisted in anguish, faded memories of lost lives clawing their way back to the surface. They cried out silently in despair, their mouths moving but no sounds escaping, merging into a blur of forgotten souls pleading for release. The realization sunk in deeper than the fear. These were the remnants of what I had summoned. "Help us!" The chorus of voices intertwined with the child's, wrapping around my mind like delicate chains, forging a bond one couldn't sever. Torn between morality and survival, I opened my mouth to speak but ended up choking on my words. My instincts shouted for me to turn away, to abandon the darkness, but there was something fragile in that child's silhouette. A connection stung as my heart ached for the innocent lives caught in this malevolent trap. "Stop!" I finally screamed into the void, the sound erupting from my chest like the roar of a trapped beast. The shadows quivered with displeasure, the entities howling out in fury. Slowly, the child's form pulsed more brightly, still there yet receding deeper into the darkness, flickering in and out of my sight as though straining against an unyielding tide, and then I noticed something even more chilling. The planchette began to slide beneath my fingers, moving purposefully as if guided by an unseen force, seeking answers of its own. Desperation gripped me as I pleaded, "What do you want?" Spells of ancient torment dragged themselves forth through my fingertips, etching letters into the board as they spilled from my trembling lips, weaving a spell that echoed louder as it broke the boundaries of my control. But it felt wrong, the energy flowing through me dark and sickly, as if the very act of asking had invited more horror than I could comprehend. "Revng," it spelled, dragging the final word out like a final breath. The child whimpered, and the shadows wrapped around me thickened into a formless monstrosity. The board quaked under my hand as the entity that loomed in the darkness swelled, threatening to engulf me entirely. With each second, the world beyond the void twisted into a cyclone of madness. My surroundings sighed and warped as the shadows howled in insatiable hunger. The desperate child's figure morphed again, merging with the swarming darkness, a haunting reflection of what awaited if I failed. "Help me!" It whispered once more, a haunting echo caught between realms. Panic surged within me, a chilling sense of dread enveloping my soul, and with one last push of will, I clawed at the shadows that sought to devour me whole. Then, just as I thought the darkness would finally claim me, a blinding flash erupted from the planchette, and in that moment of brilliant light, I felt the shadows peeling away, and I was left with the child's piercing eyes locked onto mine, shimmering with a hope that felt impossibly fragile. But the dark entity, enraged by my resistance, screeched in fury, and as the light faded back to the suffocating void, a bone-chilling whisper slipped through the air, "This is only the beginning." then everything fell silent, and I was alone beneath a suffocating blanket of shadows once more. I had opened a portal, but could I close it before the horrors that lurked beyond devoured everything I loved? The silence pressed down on me, heavy and oppressive, as if the very air had thickened into a suffocating shroud. I stood there, heart racing, listening for any sign of the child or the maddening cacophony that had once surrounded us. But the voices had withdrawn, leaving an unbearable stillness that buzzed in my eardrums like an insect trapped in glass. I gasped for breath, trying to shake away the remnants of fear creeping like ice through my veins. Then my eyes darted around the inky void, searching for any trace of whatever dark force had been unleashed. There was nothing but an unnerving calm that sent chills skittering down my spine. I tightened my grip on the planchette, still warm from the brief surge of energy that had coursed through it. It pulsated rhythmically now, and I could feel its weight as if it were alive, a heartbeat tethered to my own. "Help me," the child's voice echoed from somewhere deep within the shadows, but this time, it was not full of urgency. It resonated with a slow, dismal acceptance. The sense of dread sharpened, turning into a knife that twisted painfully in my gut. What had I awakened? What would it demand in return for power I had foolishly sought? I stumbled backward, my foot catching on something solid, and I fell hard onto what felt like cold concrete. Panic surged again. The surface was wrong, too unyielding, a stark contrast to the endless void I had just traversed. I pulled myself to my feet, heart thundering in my chest. The stillness around me cracked underfoot. A disjointed scream, muffled yet tangible, echoed in the emptiness. That I turned on my heels, searching desperately for a sign, but the darkness swirled menacingly, an endless pit and abyss that seemed to pulse with its own nefarious intentions. The planchette quivered violently in my grasp and whispered an insistent command against my skin, pleading for my attention. Revenge. The chilling letters inscribed themselves anew. My mind raced. What was I being compelled to enact? The repeated summons filled me with dread. The child's eyes behind those lashes, vulnerable and pleading, were burned into my memory alongside the faces of the lost souls. Their mouths moved in agony. There had to be a way to reverse it. I couldn't be responsible for another wave of suffering. I dropped to my knees, clutching the planchette against my forehead in desperate prayer and will. A single tear slipped down my face, a stark contradiction amid the darkness. Please, I just wanted to connect, not to destroy or summon vengeance. My voice trembled, each word tasted of hopelessness. Tell me how to undo this. As if responding to my plea, the shadows shifted, coiling and writhing like a great, monstrous serpent. A rasping laugh echoed through the void, chilling to the bone, a sound that held centuries of anguish, madness, and malice. Be careful what you wish for, a voicino. Many voices answered in mocking unison, reverberating throughout the darkness as if the shadows themselves had entwined their terrible essence into the words. You have opened the gates, and now the price must be paid. The ground beneath me lurched, responding to the tumult within the void as if it were alive. The walls of grey mist warped and twisted, revealing fleeting glimpses of the horrors set to emerge. I caught sight of flailing limbs, blinding eyes, and gaping mouths filled with 100 unholy screams trapped in silence. Revenge. The forces chanted again, and with each utterance, the shadows surged forward, engulfing the portal before me in a maelstrom of darkness. The air crackled with electric energy that washed over my skin in waves, taking on the form of ghostly hands that seized my wrists and tugged me closer to the abyss. Your debt is great. If you wish to save the child, you must act. Do you wish to command the darkness or be consumed by it? The chorus crescendoed, crashing against my consciousness, igniting fear as I turned to the planchette again, feeling its metallic surface pulse with urgency. Speak. It demanded through my lips involuntarily, and as I opened my mouth to utter the command, the faces of the lost flickered before me, pleading in their silent screams. My soul ached with guilt and sorrow, but I also felt the burgeoning need, a hunger for vengeance that mirrored the insatiable call echoing through the cosmos, and in that moment of paralyzing uncertainty, the spaces around me twisted and turned, each shadow becoming a swirling vortex of dark intentions. I felt the oppressive weight of the past pressing on my chest, and I understood the entities weren't alone in this longing. They craved a reckoning, a holler for justice that demanded retribution. Revenge. They urged once more, and I fell to my knees, heart racing, gripped by an impulse I couldn't resist. The abyss felt close now, vibrating with a sinister promise that "Is this what you want?" I gasped, feeling my voice tremble as ultimate dread coiled around my mind like a tightening noose. Then, the shadows rippled, and the child's voice emerged from the chorus, breaking through like a beacon of hope tinged with despair. "Don't listen. Please, don't do it," but the words faded as the shadows grew louder, intertwining with the darkness and forming a shape that loomed ominously before me, a visage grotesque yet familiar, its eyes burning with the hatred of the forsaken. It opened its mouth, a chasm of despair wider than the abyss itself, and as I locked eyes with that wretched countenance, I knew that the final decision was long overdue. Before I could think, the darkness surged, and I screamed into the void, "What must I do?" The chorus fell silent, and the shadows froze in their violent dance. Suddenly, a singular voice broke through the stillness, the voice of an old soul intertwined with mine, whispering secrets of the past. "Offer what you treasure most and vengeance shall be yours." And before I could comprehend the horror of what I was about to unleash, the ground shook violently beneath my feet, and I felt the hands of the lost pulling at my consciousness. A chilling laugh echoed through the nightmarish landscape, as an answer emerged from the darkness that would change everything, and from the depths of the shadows, I felt the presence of something far worse than death stare back into my soul. The void swallowed me, and darkness pressed down like lead, a suffocating shroud cloaked in whispers. I felt the chill seep into my bones, freezing my resolve, turning my thoughts to ash. I gasped, but no air filled my lungs, just the resonance of 100 heartbeats drumming in discordant harmony. Then I fell. As I plummeted into the shadows, a sensation surged through me, an unfamiliar connection to something ancient and colossal, an intelligence threading through the dark like sinuous smoke. It wrapped around my essence, melding with my spirit, whispering secrets that twisted and contorted my sanity. My fear gave way to an ember of rage, kindling into a furious blaze that pulled me toward a sightless horizon. When the crash came, it was not against the ground but against an endless expanse of memories. They shattered around me like glass, spinning in chaotic colors, drifting like autumn leaves caught in a storm. I stood before the landscape of my own mind, the creaking floorboards of my childhood home, the laughter of my friends echoing through blissful summer days, the fleeting moments of delight I'd shared with Maggie. But everything had a pallor now. Joy curled at the edges like frost, and every jubilant laugh morphed into a wretched wail. The colors turned monochromatic, a haunting sepia tone that warped the vibrancy of life until the only sound remaining was a low, constant weeping that seemed to emanate from within. In the heart of my sorrow, a resonant voice called out me, daughter sweet, innocent Maggie, desperately searching for me in the dark recesses of her own anguish, Mommy. Her voice creaked like a door struggling to close. Help me. With every pleading syllable, time collapsed further, layering shadows upon shadows, and each step I took led me deeper into the labyrinthine patterns of despair. I struggled against the somber wails, desperate to escape the agonizing echoes that surrounded me. Maggie! I cried, veering toward her voice, hoping to reach her against the tide of sorrow, but the shadows were manifold, binding my shoes to the soil. Tendrils of darkness whipped around my ankles, pulling me back as grotesque figures emerged from the darkness, their elongated forms obscured in the mist. They wore forgotten faces, each one reflecting the agony of their own past, a mother clinging to the ghost of her child, a lover mourning an eternal absence, lost souls shackled to their grief. Fear gripped me as I recognized them, those who had paid the price before me, each one marked by their own moment of weakness. You will join us. They shrieked, their voices a cacophony of despair that turned my blood to ice. You can't escape. You are but a vessel for our torment, leave me alone. I cried, extending my hands in a futile warding off of their suffocating presence, but they advanced, their gnarled fingers stretching toward me, each one a harbinger of suffering that beckoned me to submit. There is no escape from this maze, Sarah. The grotesque visage from before loomed larger now, an amalgamation of anguish and malice. The choice has been made. Her return will cost you dearly. No. I fought against the urge to surrender, feeling the bitterness of stolen lives coil around my throat. I will find her. The shadows recoiled, swirling and converging, forming a cyclonic shape that began to rise towards the perpetually distant horizon of my memories. There, woven into the fabric of reality, lay the answer, the last remnant of Maggie I could grasp. I surged forward, desperation coursing through me. Suddenly, a fractured image blazed to life amid the shadows. It was a garden, full of vibrant flowers surrounding a rusted swing set, the childlike laughter wrapping around me like a locket. In that moment, I reached for it, spinning wildly toward the scene, willing it into existence. Something erupted from the shadow's gnarled hand, cold and unyielding, snatched my arm with an iron grip. No! I screamed, tearing against its hold, but it only laughed, a malicious, echoing sound that rattled the cage of despair I found myself within. Her return has a price, one that will unravel your very being. You can never possess the light without embracing the dark. The ground below heaved with shadows, their laughter rising like a piercing siren, muffling my cries. The haunting whispers crescendoed until they formed an unbearable chorus that drowned out the last vestiges of hope. Then the figures quelled, folding themselves into the shadows, revealing a mirror. In it stood a dark reflection of myself, hollow-eyed, lips curled in an unsettling grin. I barely recognized the face staring back at me as it flickered in and out of focus, morphing with the identities of those lost before, each one a testament to the price of vengeance. Now, it hissed, a murmur threaded with malice, make your choice. With no clarity in the madness swirling around me, I faced the mirror, heart racing, paralyzed by the weight of what was unsaid. All at once, a ghostly howl echoed, the sound burgeoning from the depths of the void, the anguished cries melding with my own thoughts, coiling in a terrifying symphony, and just as the mirror splintered, revealing fragments of flickering silk and shimmering despair, I glimpsed the truth of my price, one I could not afford to pay. The fragments broke free, and in one horrifying moment before the depths consumed me again, I heard her voice, the echo of Maggie, calling out, her spirit reaching through. Mommy! Please, come back! As I clawed toward her voice, the darkness stirred and writhed, absolutely forbidding my ascent into the light. I shall not let you leave, the figure roared, the shadows swirling to envelop me in a grip of icy certainty. And I plunged deeper into the void, the weight of the world crushed down around me, as the reflection of what I feared most danced in the shards of broken glass, the last flicker of light extinguished, and I was swallowed whole, silence mingling with dread, a countdown ticking down to an end I could not fathom. But then, amidst the all-consuming dark, a light flickered anew, a haunting ember igniting hope in a sinister world, one that could very well be the key to opening the gate of untold horror. The ember pulsed softly, an enticing glow pushing through the curtain of darkness, beckoning me forward as though it were a siren's call. It felt like a beacon of hope amidst encroaching despair, tantalizingly close yet distant as it flickered like a dying star. The flicker grew insistent, resonating with a frequency that was both foreign and familiar. I could almost hear Maggie's laughter echoing beneath the glow, lightly veiling a sinister essence that danced just out of reach. As I leaned toward the light, the shadows thickened, a darkened tide surging to engulf me. They rolled with malicious intent, forming grotesque shapes that whispered my name, their echoes reverberating within the cavern of my mind. You think it's hope, they hissed, their voices slithering through my ears like oil. You think you can outmaneuver your fate? I recoiled, yet the ember throbbed, growing hotter, igniting an insatiable hunger within me to know, to understand, to reach my daughter. Rising dread slinked around my spine, coiling me tightly as I weighed my options, a cursed promise wrapped in light. It called forth every fiber of my being to plunge into it. Mommy! I'm scared. Maggie's voice ruptured through the cacophony, each syllable sharp and urgent, slicing away the haze of fear that threatened to drag me under. I'll save you! I shouted, forcing my eyes back to the warm glow of the ember. It shimmered like a window into another realm, a space vibrantly alive, breath held in a respiratory lull, all but stilled as if it awaited my arrival. Your daughter is not alone in her fear, a voice slipped through the obsidian veil, sluggish and cold. The very air around me thickened, shrinking with suffocating intensity. Others linger here, and their cries seek shelter. As I squinted through the shadows, the landscape began to morph, a meadow caught in the eternal twilight, filled with the restless spirits of children lost. Their spectral forms floated just beyond the edge of visibility, fidgeting in despair, their eyes glassy pools reflecting secrets the dark had forgotten. "Save us," they chorused softly, their voices fusing into a mournful melody that tugged at my heartstrings. I stumbled, each step pulling me further into their atmospheric sorrow. With each whisper, claws of an unseen terror ensnared my soul, weaving guilt and regret into my resolve. "Find her," the children begged, their forms flickering like candlelight threatened by a storm. "Bring her back and we will guide you," but a chill settled over me, weaving through my bones as uncertainty cloaked my intentions. "And what is the cost?" I asked louder, my heart thudding ominously. The ember glowed with pulsating brightness, yet I could sense the chill coiling tighter, each cry a tendril entwined around my will. "Only what you are already willing to bear," they murmured, their voices tinted with a grim finality. They surged toward me, spectral hands clawing through the air, reaching for my heart. Cries filled my ears, threading through the chorus of voices that dripped with sorrow. Pain washed over me, blurring the line between desire and desperation, and yet he was rooted, my mind clouded by the weight of choice. "Mommy." Maggie screamed again, the innocence in her voice was swallowed whole by the chaos around me. I gasped, my heart fracturing. As I leaned closer toward the ember's warmth, my resolve crystallized. "Please, just let me see her." I cried out, desperation clouding my senses. "I will find her." Pain coursed through me, an unyielding current of agony that surged from the depths of the unknown, causing my vision to blur, and then, unlike anything I had ever felt before, a breakthrough of a rift in the shadows tore open, revealing a colossal figure looming amidst the chaos. Its frame was an infinite weave of darkness, each of its limbs stretching beyond comprehension, merging with the very essence of despair. "You think you understand the price, little one?" The figure boomed, its voice booming like thunder, resonating with the void. How profoundly naive. Before I could respond, the children's sorrow twisted, turning into a rage as cries morphed into shrieks of despair. The shadows cascaded inward with a swirling frenzy, and I felt the pulse of the ember synchronize with my shaking heart, offering an overwhelming opportunity, a chance to breach the unknown. Yet it was then that the landscape quaked, and an unearthly howl split through the void, shaking the remnants of my courage. The figure stepped forward, cloaked in the insurmountable weight of pain. "Your daughter is forever tethered to this realm," it spoke, its voice reverberating through my bones, "but in your quest for her, you may awaken something much worse than you can imagine." A piercing scream erupted from everywhere and nowhere, rising into a tempest as the shadows exploded violently around me. The light of the ember flickered fiercely, illuminating the tattered remnants of long-forgotten tales of horror, and just as the ghostly winds battered the essence of my sanity, I saw the visage of my daughter, spectral tears carving trails down her cheeks, her visage lost in the fevers of despair hovering behind the madness. "Mommy!" she cried, her voice breaking, "Help me. Please, don't leave me." But before I could surge forward, the figure's shadow loomed larger, engulfing the radiant light. The echoes of the fates I'd choose intertwined with the ancient curse, threatening to unravel the very fabric of reality, and the last echoes of Maggie's voice coiled around my heart. "Mommy, it's coming." In that moment, the world imploded into darkness, and I was left teetering on the brink of existence, an awakening of horrors I could never have anticipated looming just beyond the veil, waiting to feast upon my deepest regrets. The air turned rancid, the bitter tang of decay seeping into my lungs as the darkness expanded, a menacing expanse clawing at the edges of my sanity. I didn't know if I was still standing in the meadow or if the shadows had consumed me entirely. Either way, all that mattered was the echo of Maggie's sobs, each one a shattering glass in my heart. "Mommy, please," she wailed, the desperation lending her words an otherworldly weight. The shadows lashed out, mingling with the sorrowful whispers of the children, forming an inescapable cocoon of anguish around me. "What do you want?" I gasped, my throat growing tight as primal fear gripped my soul. "Tell me what I have to do to save her." The colossal figure remained silent, its presence looming like a storm cloud ready to unleash devastation. From its depths, a blinding flash of light erupted. It pierced the darkness, revealing pitiable shapes writhing upon the ground, lives trapped in moments forever suspended in time. Each face bore the marks of despair, both fresh and ancient, each trapped in their own horror. I saw the faces of the children from before, now contorted in eternal anguish. "Is this what awaits?" I pleaded, my chest tightening under the weight of their collective misery. The shadows latched on tighter, sinking toothy tendrils around my arms and legs, binding me against my will. The ember's glow surged in response, desperately illuminating the faces of the damned, their eyes yearning, begging for release. Every step closer to your daughter pulls you deeper into their torment, hissed the figure, and for the first time, I sensed humor in its words, a cold and twisted delight. Do you crave to join them? No. I just want her back. I screamed, my voice swallowed by the cacophony of shrieks around me. But the shadow grew stronger, the tension accumulating like a tightened noose around my very soul, each spectral tendril humming with a malevolent energy. Then you must bear the weight, the colossal figure proclaimed, its voice resonating with the terror of countless souls. You must make a choice that demands sacrifice. What could that sacrifice be? Each second that passed felt like an eternity, drawing me towards a precipice I couldn't see. I could feel the ember's warmth juxtaposed against the cold reality of despair wrapping around me like a shroud. Mommy. Maggie cried again. A flicker of hope pierced the darkness, a fleeting moment where her visage would emerge clear as day, her small body ghostly but determined, reaching out toward me. I need you, the ember pulsed, the shadows howling in retaliation. Within the swell of emotions, a strangled truth began to form. You want my fear, I whispered, as understanding crashed over me like a wave. That's the price, yes. The figure bellowed, its laughter echoing as the shadows swirled around me, wrapping tighter and tighter. I felt their sting creeping through my heart, each tendril branding me with every sin I'd ever committed, every moment I had faltered. Transform that fear into power, let it guide your actions, and I shall grant you passage. Emboldened by self-preservation and the tangible essence of my daughter, I grasped the ember tightly, perhaps too tightly, feeling its heat pulse into my fingertips. Yet, as I did, I became aware of the urgency the shadows felt alive, swirling in anticipation, feeding from my mounting dread. Do it. Embrace your fear. Give it life. They chanted, voices merging into an overture of madness that reverberated through the abyss. I felt the rippling energy being torn from within me, the shadows quaking with desire. Mommy. Maggie's voice pierced the fog again, her image flickered, undulating with the current. Don't listen to them. The internal war mounted within me, the ember's glow gleaming brighter as if sensing its own impending destruction. No. I screamed, attempting to drown out the cacophony. I won't let you take my fear. I will find her without paying the price. With that declaration, the world convulsed around me, a violent storm of shadow clawing at my body, its fury unleashed. But just as the turbulence surged, an unforgiving force burrowed into my soul. The ember exploded in my grip, and darkness roared that I was launched backward, thrust into a cyclone of chaos, and through that maelstrom, I saw Maggie's face again, glowing with an ethereal light. Mommy. No. She flailed helplessly against the insatiable maw of shadows that roared to swallow her whole, everything twisted, reality fracturing. The figure loomed, each limb unfurling like jagged branches ready to devour. Just as intent surged in me to reach for Maggie, a sudden crunch of wood splintered through the chaos. A shadow molded itself into an unholy visage, an old, malevolent face emerging from the void, another relic of despair awakened from its slumber. It grinned knowingly, eyes gleaming with malice. You're not the first to try and save her, it whispered, the air thick with dread. And it's only just begun. In that moment, a searing pain split through my core as the shadows converged, 1,000 hands seizing me into the depths of forgotten anguish. And as the darkness whispered secrets no mortal was meant to hear, I realized that the journey was far from over. I faced the new horror unfurling amidst the darkness, one that stretched beyond time and reason, and it stared back at me, beckoning, waiting for a hand to be dealt in this twisted game. The shadows clutched tighter, and despair curled like smoke around every thought of escape, leaving me balancing on the abyss, but Maggie was still trapped somewhere within that torrent of shadows grappling for her freedom. I had escaped one nightmare only to find myself entrapped in far worse, the echoes of the damned whispering incessantly about the price that must be paid. And as the face of my daughter flickered into nothingness, a chill cascaded through me, and with a final screech, reality splintered again, plunging me deeper into the darkness, leaving a solitary question echoing in the void. What price was I willing to pay? The shadows thickened, a suffocating curtain draped over the remnants of my reality, grounding me in a world where whispers became screams, and hope twisted into something grotesque. As the darkness continued to coalesce, I became acutely aware of the dampness beneath my feet, cold, clammy ground that felt alive, pulsating as if it were a heartbeat of the abyss. "Help me, Mommy." Maggie's voice strained against the blackened din, each syllable a knife searing through my heart, filling me with a torment that left no room for thought. "Please don't leave me." Fighting against the tendrils of despair entwining my limbs, I pushed forward into the swirling darkness, propelled by a desperate instinct that eclipsed all else. My fingers brushed against something tangibly an old, warped wooden surface, edges splintering and smooth in worn places. It held the chill of winter, as if it had been abandoned for ages. The unmistakable outline of a Ouija board emerged from the shadows, its planchette hovering like a parasite waiting to latch onto my trembling fingers. "No, not this, anything but this," I whispered, feeling the weight of its presence settle like a leaden shroud across my shoulders. Against all reason, I felt drawn to it, the board pulsing with dark energy, palpable, sinister invitation. "Maggie is waiting." The shadows hissed in unison, tumbling around me, their voices mingling with the feathery caress of a forgotten breeze that taunted at the edges of my consciousness. "Join them," they urged, limbs extending from the darkness, seeking the very marrow of my fears. "Speak to her." "Why?" I stammered, trying to shake off the cold tendrils wrapping around my throat, constricting with each hesitant breath. "What's the point of this nightmare?" "The point is understanding," the malevolent face returned, slipping from the void, shifting like smoke. "To weave her name into the air, to summon what haunts your daughter in the dark, and bound by your voice, you shall be tested." The board pulsed again under my fingers, sending surges of dread racing through my body. In these cursed moments, I could hear the echoes of the past, of children lost to time, their laughter now nothing but a mournful hymn carried through the woodlands, a cruel melody that twisted with mocking delight. Desperation clawed at my mind, urging me forward, to reach deeper into the abyss beneath my grasp. "Maggie!" I cried, fingers trembling above the planchette, igniting a spark in my fractured heart. "I'll find you." The darkness quivered with new energy, an intoxicating swirl of chaos orbiting my trembling form. With a breath steadied by both fear and determination, I positioned my fingers over the planchette. "Is there anyone here who knows how to help?" The air around me crackled, and the planchette began to quiver, skimming over the board in jagged directions, as the shadows convulsed, a symphony of thoughts colliding into chaos, weaving an intricate dance of the unknown. "Yes," it pronounced, the sound echoing with a voice that seemed to rise from the depths of a haunted grave. "Maggie. Can you hear me?" I pressed, heart racing, desperation gnashing at my edge of sanity. "I'm here. I'm trying to help you." A low rumble reverberated in response, stirring the air as though the very ground beneath me was awakening from a long slumber. "The darkness knows you," it hissed, flooding the space with a weight that pressed down, suffocating every ounce of hope within. "Tell me what I must do." The words tumbled from my lips, tearful and breathless as the horror spiraled around me, feeding on my desperation. I felt primal instincts flare, an ancient part of my spirit urging me to break free from this charade of manipulation, but as if sensing the fracture in my resolve, the shadows howled with glee, rising violently, enveloping me in a rapture of despair. "To save her, you must unveil the secret that binds the darkness to your flesh." "Stop." My voice strained, a fragile whisper hanging in the thick, festering gloom. "I need to see her, and I will not play your game." In a moment of stunning clarity, I felt a profile of warmth at the edge of my awareness, the ember. A flicker of hope burned within me, desperately whispering of courage. A cruel grin carved its way across the malevolent's face as it leaned forward, its whispers ceaseless, taunting my spirit. "Then why not break? Break your reality, tear the veil, and swallow the truth," it enticed, the shadows curling like serpents around me, drawing me nearer to its horrible embrace. "What lies beneath may grant you a glimpse of her once more or plunge you into eternal night." The planchette trembled, pulling tantalizingly toward the letters that formed a name that echoed with dreadful familiarity. But before I could comprehend, the darkness surged forward, the board shattering under the weight of an unseen force. The world shattered similarly, as if reality itself had split wide open, silhouetting my entire existence against an infinite canvas of nightmare. Then, a ceaseless scream ripped through the void, echoing my despair as shadows twisted into 1,000 figures, lost souls imprisoned in time. It felt as if the ground dropped out beneath me, and I plummeted into an abyss woven with familiar faces, the faces of children I had never met, but who now seemed to look at me with mingled curiosity and malice. "Mommy." Maggie's voice rang out again, a shriek that silenced everything, the shadows stilling in anticipation, their dark eyes glimmering with hunger, and then I saw their collective gaze shifting behind me, reflecting terror anew. A figure unfurled amidst the gathering storm, a monstrous silhouette dripping with malice, coiling like dark mist across what was once my life. I turned, heart pounding, blanched with a new wave of fear that gripped my throat. "Let's play a game," it hissed, a voice like cracking branches across the floor of an ancient forest. A game of revelations, and then, with a force that shuddered through my very essence, my surroundings ripped apart. The last sound I heard was a piercing laugh that tore into my very soul, its echo lingering in the shadows that threatened to consume me whole, leaving me with one final thought: what horror awaited when I opened Pandora's box?